Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. And welcome back to Adult Ed here as we wrap up our series on the modern face of immigration and migration. What a series it has been. At least I think so. What do you think? Has it been good? Good model? All right, great. I will take one moment here up front to plug the Adult Ed Focus Group, who has been working with me for months to develop this series as we lean into this new dynamic of having long-form, multi-week looks at a given topic. And this was, in the spring, I did an Adult Ed Bible study that was kind of me doing the whole thing. This one has been all about the team. They have done their work, everybody's had their own week, and we have put together an amazing session. So if this is meaningful to you, I invite you to consider, would you want to be a part of a group that helps work together to produce these kind of series? No one does all of them by themselves. Everyone sort of does one per grouping, and it's all based on what you find interesting. So if you're interested in being a part of that, please come talk to me at some point. You email me, nora@stluke.mn. That's for our online crowd. We love you too. And you can be involved too. If you need it online, we can involve you as well. Because we do that in our hybrid world. So thank you all for being here and taking the time. As we wrap up this series on immigration and migration with a look at a personal testimony of what it was like to make that journey into this country. Of course, this is the book Solito by Javier Zamora. I announced this book at the beginning of the series, and so real quick, who was able to read it? Look, Sue, it's almost the whole crowd. You turned around the wrong time. Sue, one more time. Show Sue who's read this.
Yeah. Oh, no.
All right. Oh, that's good. That's good. Almost everyone's read it. That's awesome. If you haven't read it already, that's okay too. We're going to have a rich dialogue about this series book, and I invite, there are, I'm sure, themes and experiences in this book that relate to a lot of what we've been talking about for the last 6 weeks. Feel free to, this is our chance to debrief as a group. We've been through this long series. It has been emotional. I've been moved and changed by it. Our community has been moved and changed by it. We have collected over 50 coats for the camping collective for people who are coming here and don't have winter coats. Yeah, we got over 50. That's a big deal. Like, we have done some amazing work here and heard from some powerful speakers. So as we reflect on Solito, I invite you, we don't have to just focus on Solito, and this is a curveball that I'm throwing Sue here. If you want to relate something to Solito, but also reflect on something else you've heard, that's okay too. This is a time for us to have a book group on Solito, but also on this entire series, sort of a look back and debriefing on this time together. So that having been said, and then at the end, we will have time to hear some personal stories from two of our own about experiences that they've had with migrant supports and their experience. So I will call them up here at the end. Let's dive in here, Sue. Do you want to? How do you want to get started here?
I'll give it 2 minutes.
Into the mic. Well, it's okay. We're only 6 weeks in. We love. Sarcasm is a love language. You know that, right?
It is. I grew up with 4 brothers. Yes. Okay. Good morning. Thank you for all of you who read the book. I read Solito with my book club of 22 years in May, and it moved all of us dramatically. A couple of us have 8-year-old grandchildren. And of course, Javier was 9 when he left to go on this journey by himself. So it touched my heart. So when we picked this as a subject, and Nora said, well, what about doing a book read for the last one? Liz very graciously got the St. Luke Book Club to read it as their selection. And so today we'll spend about 30 minutes just summarizing, and I'm going to interact, hopefully, a few questions that I pulled from a discussion guide I'd like to hear from some of you. I don't want to do all the talking this morning. So that's what prompted me to pick this book, because it moved me.
So just to be clear, you can chat, you're gonna sort of host this conversation, but I'm gonna be coming around with a microphone. So those of you who have questions or have reflections on this, we really want this to be more dialogical than the rest of this series. So I'm gonna be coming around, and you can see how I'm talking into this mic like this. You see that? That's how everyone, especially our online friends, can hear us. And it feels maybe kind of weird putting it up in front of you, but I promise everyone will hear you better if you do that. So I'll be coming around to share the microphone with everyone when we come to that.
I'd like to start with someone who does a much better job of interviewing. Any of you that watch the Today Show with Jenna Bush, and I don't watch the Today Show, I watch CBS. Hoda. Well, Jenna Bush did a 5-minute interview with Javier in 2022. And we have it on YouTube, which Nora's gonna beam up. And he did many interviews, so if that entices you, all you have to do is Google, Solito, Javier, and all these interviews. But we'll start with this 5-minute interview with Jenna Bush.
The Arizona desert, writer Javier Zamora sees both beauty and pain.
This place has done so much harm to me, but now a lot of the time it seems like it's giving back. It seems like it's apologizing to me.
His relationship with his surroundings is complicated. He endured a perilous 3,000-mile journey from a small town in El Salvador to the United States by himself at just 9 years old. In the aftermath of the Civil War, his parents had been forced to flee from their home years earlier, later entrusting a network of smugglers called coyotes to reunite them with their little boy.
I didn't know how to tie my shoes yet. I was afraid of the dark. I couldn't swim. And the first thing that I have to do is go on this boat and face the ocean with these strangers.
His 2-week trip through Guatemala, Mexico, and the Sonoran Desert stretched into 9 life-altering weeks.
I think the fear as a kid was that I was never gonna make it, that I was never gonna see my parents. What's gonna happen if I am by myself as a 9-year-old kid?
His harrowing story fills the pages of his memoir called Solito. It's pieced together from his memories, many unearthed through therapy, and from childhood journals and drawings, some stained with tears.
Everything happens fast. Handcuffs on Chino, uniforms do the same to the others who didn't run fast enough, like us.
There were many obstacles that nearly prevented Javier from completing his journey. He was abandoned, detained by Border Patrol, and deported twice. But Javier's story is also one of hope and the kindness of strangers, 3 in particular, Patricia, Carla, and Chino, who traveled by his side.
That part of your story, the part of the best of humanity, the part where a stranger literally carries you because your little feet couldn't walk anymore, was what brought me so much hope. How did you feel when you met these people that treated you like a son?
They made me feel less alone. And slowly they become my family, and a family without whom I wouldn't be here today.
Javier went on to earn degrees from UC Berkeley and NYU and was a fellow at Stanford and Harvard. On paper, it's the American dream, but Javier says the pressure he's faced to succeed has taken a toll on him and his mental health.
The question is, was it worth it? Has our sacrifice been worth what that has taken out of us? I think the dream of the United States and the reality of the United States did not match. And when they don't match, you keep asking this question, why am I here? Why did I just do all of that?
What do you hope people
get out of this book?
That immigrants are human, and it's more complex than just completely negative and completely positive. It is a complete life, and immigrants are that too.
You guys, he's incredible, and he dedicates this book to that makeshift family we told you about, even though he hasn't seen them since he arrived in the U.S. more than 2 decades ago. Solito is out today, and I hope you'll pick up a copy and read with us.
Well, I wish Jenna were here because for once I actually did read this book. It's an incredible book.
Wow, I can't wait. I mean, after just watching that piece.
Thank you, Jenna Bush and Javier. On the Hennepin County website, if you just do a little bit of Googling, there's much longer interviews with Javier, someone I think from NPR and PBS, and probably the one that moved me the most as far as what prompted him to write this book at 22. He did end up in therapy and as a young adult, and someone said to him, well, why? Here you're in America, life is good. And he said, because for 10 to 15 years of his life, even after we got here, he had to lie to everybody he knew. He always had to be careful. Yeah. What could he say that would get him in trouble? And so he said to go into any relationship with a person, he knew nothing but to lie. And that is not a good basis for any relationship.
Certainly not a healthy one.
Absolutely. So she mentioned there are a couple of things. He didn't know how to tie his shoes. He couldn't swim. And those of you who read the book, what was his first journey? When he was getting on one of those crazy boats that they pile with people, with coyotes, driving it at full speed. And they give them one little Dramamine so they won't, throw up. And of course, a lot of people on that boat don't know how to swim. He was not the only one. So he started with his Velcro shoes and saved his tie shoes that in 2 weeks when he got to the US, he would put his nice new black tie shoes on. It made me smile, because I have a granddaughter that went through this. He was afraid of flush toilets. Where he had grown up in El Salvador, you went out to the back, to the outhouse, and when you need to do your number 2, you squatted, you covered it with leaves, and then grandpa would come, and bury it. And suddenly he's on a bus, or he's in a terminal, or he's in one of these safe places. And I think it was Chino who finally said to him, I will stand here and make sure you don't fall into the toilet or that it will take you. That was one of those little details. So as they shared, this was supposed to take 2 weeks. He left on April 6th. 9 weeks later, June 10th, he arrived in Arizona. Thank you. And that is where his parents came to pick him up. And during that time, and this is what I imagine, from April 20th until June 1, his family had no contact. So he talks, which he learned later, the lighting of the candles, people, everywhere back home in California, because his mother and father were living in California, just praying, but there was no contacts. Near the end of the journey, there were lots of contacts from more coyotes who said, well, Mom, Dad, if you want, we need another $1,500, or we need another $500, or those were the calls they got. And they had to believe that person on the other line, that they had a son, and that it was going to result in Javier meeting his family. I think one of the things that struck me the most was this group of people who had a goal. I was also impressed by how many times those of you who read it, Patricia had her little bag of makeup. And when they get to a place where they could take a shower, wash their hair, and he described the mascara and the lipstick and her little rosy cheeks. And I thought that had to be for those of us who every morning wash our face, put on moisturizer and do a little makeup. that was her normalcy. You know, she had to make her feel like, okay, I can still be a human and I'm not gonna go out without my makeup on. But eventually the makeup went away, and that was when she got all of those quirks from a cactus, when she fell into a cactus and those terrible deals. Probably the biggest part for me was that as I thought about it this whole time, just when you think, what's my name today? Sometimes we all have trouble with that. What day is it? This is a 9-year-old, along with Carla, never mentioned her age. She was maybe a little older, and they had a tag. New name, where am I from, where am I going? We all have those questions. Where am I going right now? Well, these were life or death that they got to know. And that just moved my heart.
Yeah, with that, a little contextualizing that, my 8, almost 9-year-old Lillian, who many of you know, if you want to put a face to that sort of age range, it's right around in there. You know, she's growing up in a safe home with a couple of parents in a loving community. She doesn't know how to tell time. She doesn't really know how to tie her shoes. She's starting to learn how to swim, but that's with all the advantages in the world. And to not have those, to just imagine that little person and, you know, and little people everywhere, right? There are still children doing this today. There are children suffering in these ways all around our world in this way. And it's so, you know, as we get up, we grow old, and when you turn 25, you kind of have your brain together and you kind of know everything. And then you turn 60 and you kind of, you know, this is the world is, and you can be here for a while, it's easy. But for kids who are under 10, they're still figuring out the world. And to not have safety and to have to remember your name or you're dead, like that is traumatizing at the very least. To go on and do such wonderful things with himself, what a miracle of a story and a real testament to his hard work and the saving grace of those who saw a little boy and just cared.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start with a few questions that I'll throw out to the group. So be ready with your.
All ready.
Okay. One question that 2 of us in our book club had was, well, he had this loving family in El Salvador. He had aunts, he had uncles, he had a grandpa, he had a grandma. Why did he have to go on this journey? And then I think someone spoke up, well, he didn't have parents who wanted him, and he was the only child. So the people, his parents, grandparents in El Salvador, trusted the infamous Don Dago and others who remained unnamed throughout the book. Javier relies on a network of coyotes to get him to America. So I'd like to throw out, if anyone would care to share your opinion, what was your initial opinion of these coyotes? And did it change over the course of reading the memoir? Any thoughts that someone would like to share?
Yeah, this one.
The first thing is, I assumed that if you had a coyote, you had one. And there weren't just one at any one point, you know, there were 2 or 3, sometimes even 4. But the thing that really struck me was that at each point, you know, like you got to go with Nicaragua first, and then it's a full ride. That was a different group of people. And then when he got to Mexico, there was another group of people. And then when he finally got up to, you know, up to the edge of what they call the line, there was another group. And when he get yeah, at every point you had to trust people that you knew nothing about. And after his first time trying to get in, the coyotes, I mean, they just disappeared. In fact, at one point, I remember them saying, if we encounter Border Patrol, you don't know me and I'm gone.
Any other thoughts on what you first thought?
Well, the first,
Yes, David.
the one who his grandfather gave money to from the local town, I believe, to take care of him and so he was trusted, but he didn't live up to that trust. He didn't help him at all, he ran away. And so what's that do to you when somebody you know and your family trust proves not to be trustworthy?
I gotta ask, if for those of you who have children, who have grandchildren in your lives, can you even imagine doing that? Can you even imagine saying, I'm gonna give you a couple $1,000 to a stranger in another country and pray that I'm gonna see my kid again? Because I literally can't go there myself and get them, right? But I need my kid, like my kid can't grow up, like we left for a reason, right? We gotta have our kid, we're here, what do we do? Or what do you do in that situation where you're like, we gotta get out of here, it's not safe, we gotta bring our kid? Is it safer to leave the kid at home with grandparents? Or to bring them with you through, you don't even know where you're going. At least when you get there and you're like, okay, we know how we got here, it's possible. For the parents and grandparents here, how could you find the faith, the courage, what would it take? Yeah.
I think his parents believed that LA really was a better life than El Salvador, and I think that was their push to put him through this, which I can't dump it. The grass isn't always greener on the other side.
Well, I would say that his parents, I think, trusted their family, that the grandparents would take care of their boy. And because they didn't know what was ahead of them, I think they didn't have, hope that it would be better for him to go with them. So they knew the security of their family, leaving his grandparents. That was probably a wise choice for them.
It was 5 years, and his mom had gone. When the dad, I believe, left because there was the war and he maybe fought on the wrong side, and that's why he got his body out of there. The mother followed. But that's a very good point, then. You know what? Let's wait until we have our ducks in a row.
And can I, one more, yeah.
First of all, I felt that praying was something because we felt we were on a journey and this was going on. The other thing, I think the contrast of now, I think the progress things turned on. But the contrast of even parents having a hard time letting go down the playground without supervision. I mean, that's kind of the way we live in our communities these days. And always paying attention where we are going, that fear. It's just blows my mind.
Okay, another question that I thought could prompt some good thoughts. Aside from Javier, which obviously he touched many of our souls, what other characters stayed with you and why? Of all the different characters he encountered, which ones may have really stayed with you and why?
Chino. He did so much for Javier and also the woman's child, and he even stayed with him when he could have run and gotten through, which I think that was the first time. And then carrying these kids, and he carried Javier and then Carla, meant, just, and he didn't know. He didn't know.
And 8 and 9-year-olds aren't light. You can go pick up Lillian a little later if you want to see exactly how that is.
Well, also he was carrying these huge gallon jugs of water and not enough water, as it turns out. So not only is he carrying kids, but water, and that's just incredible when you think about that. And he wasn't a big person. Also, Patrice carried water too, and backpacks. So it's a lot of things they were carrying.
I think those three that journeyed with him is who stuck with me, became his family. And I think at the very end of the book, they exchanged phone numbers and there were a few phone calls because they went to Virginia. And then someone changed a phone number and then that stopped. And maybe it's in the afterwards where he said, I hope that maybe if they read this book, that they will reach out. I mean, I just get shivers. I can't imagine. And then who knows what their future.
What a testament to the human spirit.
Amen.
Right? And I have a question that I'd like to ask, unless you have one that's pressing, but.
No, not pressing.
Okay. So the question I have for you, was this necessary? Did it have to happen this way?
I mean, did it did he have to go? Is that what you mean, or?
No, because the parents have gone, they're in another country. Their son, they want to get their son and bring them to them. And this is how it happened. This was the only option open to them. But is that how it had to be?
No.
If there'd been no war,
If there had been no war, then what?
it would probably not
Then it would not, why not?
have had to happen, because the father would not have had to leave in the beginning.
Sure. So human conflict drives families apart, creates hardships for us.
But political, what our government does, because our border patrol policy.
So, and we've learned throughout this series that our border patrol policies have shifted a lot in the last 50, 60 years. There used to be a time when it would have been fine. Would have been fine. They could have traversed themselves. Or maybe even, I don't know, I don't know El Salvador, I've never been there. I don't know how easy it is to fly in and out. But it just, to me, there is a bigger problem here than, and I just want to recognize that this is the way it is, and could we dream of a better way? To recognize, to not just say, well, this is how it is, but to also say, wow, what if we could fly families to reunite them? What if they could have, gotten halfway and, gotten out of El Salvador and found someone to then fly, like it just, yeah, that's all. I guess that's my own thing, right? I'm a dreamer, right? And I just want to see a world where this doesn't have to be the way it is.
And I recall early on in the book, and I don't have the exact pages, I believe his mother, there was 3 different attempts they did make to get, kind of to try a different, can we get out and fly together? Can we get on a boat? The mother, they investigated and their walls kept going up. They just kept going up.
Well, there are thousands and thousands of people working to change the border policy. Trump did some really bad stuff, and I had such great hopes when Biden came in, and it hasn't worked that way. And so it still is like when he came, or worse. And so I don't know, I don't have a lot of hope. But if people are picking at, you know, bringing border patrol to court because they destroyed water in the desert, because they shot migrants. Any rate, it's be a long journey.
And finding hope in these times is super hard, right? And so what do we do? And so how did Javier find hope? There's a question for you.
Well, he just wanted to lay in bed with his mom and dad throughout. He felt snuggling with them. Oh, and then there was the TV and the McDonald's and the pizza, you know, but I think all he could think about was, I want to be hugged by my mom and dad. That was his hope.
That embedded memory
Yes.
of love
Yes.
and care brought hope to keep going forward against every odd.
So I'm gonna call this a wrap, and I'm so glad that many of you read this. And I would encourage you to get online, and if you wanna dig a little deeper, and since this church group book read went so well, maybe in the spring, we'll try to find another one. Okay.
Oh, we got one more question here. Connie, do you want to head on up while we get this question?
It is a question. I would like to know, being a detailed person, what is his status now? I mean, he's getting all this publicity, if he still doesn't have any status, why doesn't he get arrested?
Sure. That's a good question. Anybody know his status?
It seems like in one of the longer interviews, he may not yet be a fully documented US citizen, but I could be wrong. So maybe I'll dig a little into that and just share that.
He may be DACA.
DACA?
But he wasn't born here.
Oh,
No, you don't have if you come as a child. Yes, I was thinking you had to be born here. Okay.
Oh, true.
Yeah, one more question, John.
Not a question so much as a comment. I've probably done 6 mission trips to Central America, so I'm somewhat familiar with the people there. And the sense of family in people from Central America is a whole lot different than it is here. We look at our nuclear family and our mother and father and the 2 kids family. When you're in Mexico or Central America, they have cousins, they have uncles, they have grandparents, they have strangers, and they're all family. And they get together every Sunday afternoon for a family get together. It's every Sunday or it's every other Sunday. It's not once a year, once every 2 years. I think Patrice was part of Javier's family, and she just adopted him essentially. In fact, I have a grandson from Guatemala. Oscar, who was 6 months old. And again, it came from a very poor family. I think there were 11 kids in the family. They shared one toothbrush. And the mother just said, I cannot raise another child, which put him up for adoption. And he has turned into a tremendous kid. He just sent me an email yesterday that he goes to De La Salle High School. He's a junior. He was nominated for the National Honor Society. So what, from nothing to the opportunity in the United States, I mean, there's no limit to what these people do. The other thing is just informational. If you want more information on the history of the war in El Salvador, I would suggest you watch the movie Romero. It's on Netflix or Prime. It cost you $2. But Oscar Romero was Archbishop in El Salvador in 1980s, 1990s, and preached liberation theology, and he was assassinated for that reason. But it tells a whole lot background about the war in El Salvador. And the third issue is, this is a great story of Javier But we have to remember that he is an exception. He's probably 1 in 100,000 people that this happens. And the rest of the people have food insecurity, they have no place to live, they're living with 20 people to a room sometimes. So yeah, this is a great story, but it's the exception.
Thank you, John, for that powerful story and testimony. That's a great segue into our next segment with Ms. Connie Bell. Connie, you have a personal story as well that you want to share with us.
Well, I wanted to share two other things. One thing you didn't know probably is that the Tucson sector, which is the toughest of the sectors really to come across the mountains, gets the most immigration than any of the other sectors. I was surprised to learn that more people come into Nogales than even across the Rio Grande. And another thing I learned was about 251,000 people in the last month came to the Tucson sector.
251,000 people.
Yes. Wow. And as a true statistic, I found it in, I think, the Atlantic Monthly. Now the thing that's changed, I think, on the border from the time that Javier came is that the gangs in Mexico and in all parts of Central America. And one of the things that the Samaritans do is they go down to Mexico. Some of the other groups do this too. And they help out at a place called the Comedor, which is a place where they feed returning immigrants that have been deported to Nogales. And the gangs have been so terrible that they've taken over all the taxi cabs except one. And one of my good friends, who is, I think, a real hero, one of my heroes, a woman named Shura, goes down on Tuesdays, and others do too. There are two entrances to Nogales. There's a truck entrance and a main entrance. The people are mostly deported at the main entrance, and they have to get to the truck entrance, which is where the Comedor is. And so that's been one of the problems that they've been having down in Nogales. And Shura was there, and she was at the Comedor. I wanted to explain it so you understood too about the Comedor, and where they're feeding people, and the Samaritans are helping. The Comedor is run by the Jesuits, by the way. Anyway, so she sees this man down below the Comedor. She goes down to talk to him, and his hands have been cut off and his eyebrows shot by gangs because he wouldn't carry drugs. Now you may say, why should we allow people to carry drugs? Well, it's lots of times when you've gone the first time and you don't have money for a second time to get in, people will carry a small amount of drugs in. Get the coyotes to take them because they need help. Anyway, and I also brought a picture. The same things are happening in Italy and other places. But this picture sort of represents what's happening. It's a man with who has barbed wire around him, around a tree. And that's sort of a sad, very sad picture. It was done by a man who in Italy, who was a journalist. And he did this picture. I'm going to give it to.
Just put that on the back table, close in the back.
Yeah, and I've got some other things that say, one of the things that Samaritans do is they send out a box of things from the desert. These are things people put on their slippers. They're made out of carpet that they put on their shoes so that the Border Patrol won't find them. And this is the typical tortilla cloth that I brought that came from Sam's in a box. And so you can look back there at some of the things. They're all embroidered. And another thing that the Samaritans are doing, and we have funded various things that St. Luke has funded various things on the, such as the Samaritans or the Casa Alitas, which is the one of the places of shelter in Nogales. We've given about $2,000. I wanted to mention quickly before I lose out my time of things we could do. We could be lobbying for more judges. The judges, there aren't enough judges to adjudicate the people that have filed for asylum. 7 to 20 years to get your even your green card sometimes. And also we could be working for more funding. We could be working for immigration reform. We could be sponsoring a family. I have this bunch of other things. We could go to Borderlands. We could be asking that there's another policy that if they come here on this and they file for asylum, they have to wait 6 months before they can work. So that's when if you sponsor someone, you have to help them in that first 6 months. There are a lot of things in our policy that could be changed, and I wanted to mention that.
Thank you for mentioning all those things. If you are one who wants to be more involved in this work and support this work, it sounds like our own Miss Connie Bell here has lots of ways forward. And I invite you to deeper conversation to find out how you might be of support, whether it be simply, financially supporting the Samaritans, or hosting someone, challenging, our own Peter Frederick often appeared in immigrant court here locally. And just bearing witness is such an important, critical act. He has offered, we heard this in our series, that he offers feedback, and that judge has received that feedback, is now changed the way that they're doing. Like, there is things that we can be done. If we just take one step, right? And then be continued with this work, because there is no quick fix, easy answers here. Thank you, Connie, coming on up. Got your chair.
This turn oracle. Yep, now we get to hear from. Yeah.
Dick, I'll invite you up. I think you got a couple of words to say too, right?
Yes.
That's you.
There.
Yeah, right on up here.
We're giving you a live mic.
All right, thank you. I think I'm supposed to talk about my trip to Salvador. But went
right up here.
Right up here. Yeah. Okay. The government tried for a long time to find out who Renee really was.
Who's Renee? Renee
Hurtado.
Renee Hurtado, who is an El Salvadorian immigrant that was hosted here at St. Luke in 1982. Started. Thank you. Just for the folks who might not know who Renee is.
Okay.
Now you do.
Well, the government tried to find out his middle name lots of different ways. They did that by imprisoning him in St. Paul. And we had contacts with people all around the world who helped us relate to his family. It was decided that someone here, we had to go meet them. And the best person to do that would be his dad. So I went to Salvador, met his mother and father. We were unable to go to their home because of the war going on then. But they came to them with us in the local hotel where Julie Egard and I were staying. And so we offered them the opportunity to leave the country. I could report that his family decided they wished to leave. His mother and sister had come to the hotel and I had a letter from the name that said, you can trust this man and these folks will help you. His mother went immediately into the bathroom and burned the whole thing. Anyway, they decided they came.
Why did she do that? Why did she do that?
The fear of it in Salvador. People trying to leave the country. And he had been in the army, and he had left the army when he was ordered to murder somebody that night. So the army was not happy with him and tried, while he was living here with us, a number of ways to discover who he was. When they found that out, then it was time for somebody to go and help his family escape. That's what I want to do with you.
Tell them about the money. Tell them about the money.
Oh.
Tell us about the money.
I took money in my underwear. And I think it was $5.
Maybe don't tell us about the money.
$5,000, I think.
15.
15 later on it became. Some of it came from here and some of it came from the World Council of Churches. When I went, the man who was supposed to be my driver was disappeared the day before we went there. So we got a new driver who drove us around the country and trying to find people who would help us understand the need. We found his girlfriend's family, and they used the telegraph. He used the telegraph to ask his mother to come and meet us in the hotel. We were in a very fancy hotel that was harboring U.S. military personnel, 400 or 500 of them. At a time when, quote, there were no military people in the country, they visited. We tried to talk to them, but they were instructed not to talk. Anyway, we finally found out that we could fly Renee's family out of Salvador into Costa Rica, which we did. And this church helped them own a small plot of land in Costa Rica, and they farmed. And finally, most of his family have come to this country. So what we did, by sending me, is that we helped them trust us, and they have gradually come out of Salvador. We thought about getting them in Nicaragua, and they have no interest whatsoever in Nicaragua. So Costa Rica is where they live. Some live in New York. Some people from this congregation have visited their family in its farm in Costa Rica. And today is here for the rest of the farm.
Powerful, powerful story. Thank you for sharing that with us. Give us some more details of that. Do you want to hang out with me for the last 5 minutes, or do you want to head back to your seat?
Well, I'll hang out.
Okay, you're hanging out. Yeah, Phyllis, what's up?
So I know Renee's journey, just like others we've heard about, was not that smooth even after he was here. Could you just fill in those years that he was still struggling to legally be here?
Sure.
Briefly, we have 5 minutes.
One day, somebody in the park wanted me to come and meet him, and he had a book, and he said, if you give this book to Renee, he's probably needs something in Spanish, and you can give it back to me in a week, meaning I'd like fingerprints. When they arrested him, of course, they didn't.
Tell them what you did with the book.
What'd you do with that book?
Oh, I put hell no with my fingerprints. When he was in jail, we smuggled into the jail the last liberal president of El Salvador, living in Canada. He came here and listened to Renee when we smuggled him into the jail. And he said that this man is telling the truth. He used to be one of my military support systems. So, yes, the government didn't give up. Lots of other people helped. The world and the National Council of Churches contributed to Renee's family's movement, and he's been a powerful witness in this project.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you for that further details. We are about out of time for here today. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your witness, both of you, all of you, witnessing this series. If you have further questions for me, feel free to email me. If you'd like to be involved with adult ed and be a part of creating something like this series for the spring, please be in touch. And God bless. May we be transformed by the stories that we hear for hope and goodness in our world. Let us go now and enjoy a worship service together. Thank you, Dick. Let it go. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, everybody.